Hello. Welcome everyone to the next lecture of Data Analytics with Excel. It's a new day. Good morning. In this lecture, we'll be working with something known as Power Pivot or even pivot tables. When I learned this entire concept, I got really fascinated. This is a very interesting lecture that we can work around. At the same time, as we'll work around with this entire project, you have to work with me, unlike the last lectures, because I've seen students can potentially work in the entire Excel file after looking at the entire lecture. But for this, you have to be with me. So pause the lecture whenever you feel like, and open up your Excel sheet and do work with me. And then only you will be able to learn everything. For this lecture again, we'll be taking a case study. The case study is about a superstore, which is situated in some other country in US. Like a lot of states are being covered. As well as when we work around with this entire data set, we want to get a lot of inferences out of what is happening. It's a very small data set as compared to what we have worked around. We have only approximately 10,000 rows in this entire data set and a lot of columns, I have to say, because again, it's a superstore. So let's just dive into it. Okay, so if you can see my screen, there are a couple of things in front of you, which which is like the data is very cluttered. The first thing that we might want to do is just clean this entire data set. So we'll just do Control B here, select everything, give enough spaces, and then I'll be using Alt W F to freeze the first pane. Alt W F. First pane is now frozen. I can look at the row. I'll look at row 1 as I'm going around with this. I'll do Control Z here, and then second thing that you might want to notice is these figures. I don't like the way these figures are actually given to me, because some of the figures have 3 decimal places, some of the figures have like 1 decimal places, some of the figures have 2 decimal, and some of the figures have 4 decimal places. I want only 2 decimal places for me. So I will just select everything using Control Shift down arrow, and then I'll go to Home, and I will make sure I have only 2 decimal places. So now my data set looks like very clean, if I have to say. And the other thing that you might want to notice is that in this entire let's say data set, we have something known as row ID, which we do not want, because it's nothing but just the row number, which we do not need for any analysis. So why to have data which is not required for the data set, or let's say analysis. So we'll delete it, and now you can see the entire data set looks very clean. Again, you will be able to do it as quickly as I'm doing everything. I'm quicker right now, I'm explaining, that's why I'm a little slow. Otherwise, when you will be working with this a lot of times and you will have practice over this, then you will be able to do all of it, right? So the thing is that we really need to work on is having a pivot table in the first place, right? So you have, for that you have to go to Insert, and under Insert you can see this option under Tables Group, and under Tables Group this option will have, let's say, 2 things. If you go, click here, then it will just ask you what range you have to do, and what is the existing workbook or new worksheet. If you're going to click down, you can see what exactly can be done. We can take a table or range from the data set that we have right now, or we can take some data set from some other source also. It can be anything, right? For now, we'll work with only table and range only, and it will pop the same option for us. And I want my pivot table to be there in the new worksheet, and I'll have a new worksheet. Then I'll click on OK. The name of the worksheet is sheet 1. Then I will actually write pivot table here. Okay, we are all set. We have situated a certain level of, let's say, degree where we can work around with pivot tables. There are like some columns that you need to understand, and we have to work around with a lot of things in our pivot table analyze option also. So we'll work around with that slowly. So the first thing that you might look at is all these headers are now aligned here, right? And we'll see how we can work around with that. Then we have columns, that is the headers. Then we have rows and the values which will be displayed, and we have filters, right? And we'll work on each and every function slowly. So the first thing that I want to see right now is, let's say I'm going to my superstore again, and I can see in my superstore, let's say data set, I have category and I have subcategory, and under that we have sales, quantity, discount, and profit. Now, what I want to understand is what is, let's say, the average sales, or let's say the total sales or total profits in this entire, let's say, under category and a subcategory. What is the total sales and total profit? What is the average sales and average profits? So, if you are actually doing it using a tabular form, you might have to filter to the particular category. That is, let's say, the first category I'm testing is furniture. Then you will actually take the first subcategory and then you will go ahead and then do sales. That's going to be a very tough thing for you, right? Instead, we are actually going to work with pivot table, which will do all of these things for you right away. Right now, when I'm talking about this example for you, you might not be able to imagine how the dataset will look like. But trust me, once you work around with this, you will be very confident. So when we are in pivot table, I have the category, let's say, column here, and I want it in rows, right? And under each category, I want the subcategory. So you can see now the table has expanded. Under furniture, we have bookcases, chairs, furnishing, and tables. Under office supplies, we have so many subcategories, and so for technology as well. Now, let's say I want to get the sales as value. I can always so if you want to understand what I'm doing right now, I'm just clicking here and I'm dragging it to values column, right? And you can see I have the sum of sales here now, right? And I can understand that, okay, in this entire data set, the highest sales which I am getting is from technology, right? The highest is from technology, that is $8,36,154, right? Then second best is furniture, and then we have office supplies. But what will happen if I'm actually going to work with profits? Let's see. The highest profits is again by technology. And I can see the profit margins are also going to be really, really high for this one, as well as office supplies. But for furniture, I don't think that's the case, because two items are actually loss making. Tables and bookcases are loss making for me. I have losses for both. In this scenario for technology, all of the categories are profitable, and some of the categories might be extremely profitable, right? And this is the way I can actually, summarize the entire data set very easily using Power Pivot or pivot tables, for example. If we have to, let's say, get, let's say, average instead of the sum value of sales, all we have to do is just click here and then go to value field setting, and then instead of sum, select average. Click on OK. You need to do the same for sum of profits. Click on average and then click on OK. And then now you have the average sales. So we know for a fact that, okay, office supplies were actually giving us a very higher sales amount, and then profits were also higher as compared to furniture. But the average sales is actually lower. So this means that office supplies are generally cheaper in cost, because at the end of the day, total sales is equal to average cost into the number of items sold. So the number of items must be very, very high in office supplies, and we might have to, let's say, consider the inventory cost if you're building a model for the company. And we can say that the average profit that we are getting in furniture is extremely low. That is just $8 on a $350 base. And for technology, it is considerably high, because we are going for 452, but we are getting an average sales amount of 78. The same is true for office supplies. At $120, which is being sold, we are getting a profit margin of 20.32, which is approximately 16 to 17% of profit margin, right? This is a very quick way in just, and you can just summarize everything directly. Now let's see what will happen if you're going to interchange the columns, because it's best that we work around with this as much as possible. So if I'm going to take category out, subcategory out, average out, and average sum out. Let's take category here, subcategory here, and then sales to the rows. It's just haywire, right? You can see all the sales are actually having count of category and count of subcategory. This is not what we want. So always remember, whatever summarization that you want to do using Power Pivot, you really need to think of what you want to summarize in the first place, and whatever you want to summarize, add that to the values, and whatever item is to be summarized on a particular condition should be in the rows column. I always suggest everyone to work around with So that then and then only you will be able to understand where exactly do you need to put your headers. In the very beginning, whenever you're creating power pivot or let's say pivot tables, it might be a little hard for you to do that because you don't have, let's say, a very good hand at it. But as you will work around with this, let's say, tool more and more, you will be able to understand how you can go even better slowly, right? So for now, I will go back to how my example is, or even better, let's just create another example. We can take country for rows, then under country we can take region, and under region we can see sales and profit. And I can say that okay, central region, or okay, one more thing that I can see right now is the number of decimals are also not aligned here, right? So I might want to change that. So instead of going to power pivot or even pivot table analyze, I can just use from home tab and then decimal places correction, and then I can just directly do it, right? So I can now quite easily understand that the total sales is very high in United States. That's around 2 lakh or 22 lakh 97,200. Although the highest sales is from west side, and then we have central. At the same time, we can and then we have east, and we can see that in central and east region we have a very high, let's say, difference of sales and profit margins, right? The sales are just increasing by approximately 1.7 lakhs, but the profit has been increased by, let's say, a lot of 50%, 60% minimum, right? Another thing that you might want to do is, let's say, check the discounts, the average discounts that are being given in the state. And now you know why the central region is actually having very low sales margin, let's say the profit margins. That is because a very high discount value is being given in central region. This is a very easy way for you to create a pivot table, right? Now, the next thing that you might want to know is how, if I want to, let's say, create one pivot table, let's say what will happen if I want to create another pivot table? Do I have to keep on changing that and get the inferences? Can't I just see all the pivot tables together in one window? We can definitely do that, and we'll just do that now. If I'm going to Superstore and I'm again going to insert tab and then pivot table from this, and then existing worksheet, and I'm going to go to pivot table and click on this cell A11 and then click on OK. If it is fast, I wanted to go back and do it because this is the efficiency that you need to have when you're working with Excel. Dead focus with what you are doing, know what you want, and then just get done with it. Click on OK here. You have another pivot table here. Now let's say I want, I can have, let's say I took region. I can take states now. I can take states and I can take sales and I can take quantity, right? And now you can see which particular state is having the highest sales. Another thing that you will notice here is this column that we have already worked on in our previous lectures. If you click here, you can actually see where exactly you will be working on. Is it the country field or the region field? So you can change it based on that, and then you can sort it or filter based on whatever you want to do in your entire pivot table, right? It's a very efficient way to summarize all the data that you can think of. Although, let's try to create a very complex example now, right? This data set, I don't want to work with this. So for this, I want country first, then we have region. Under each region, we have states. Under each region, I have states. Okay, I'm not able to copy states for some reason. Okay. Because I was working with it at some other place. I'll just take save. Okay, this is a little weird because I'm not able to add. Maybe let's try with cities. Okay, let's work around and create some other pivot table. I think there's an issue with my Excel in the first way. Whenever I'm recording this, this happens. So I'm going to insert again pivot table from table source. I want a new worksheet. Under that, I want country. Yep, now it is working. State, and now I want a city column here. Yes. Let's say let's just delete city because a lot of things will be there then. I'm sorry for the trouble in between. My laptop sometimes glitches. Then let's get sales. Let's get profit, and I want average discounts which are being given. Okay, I think that would be it. And you can now see what are the states where I'm going. I'm giving the highest, let's say, discounts or whatnot. Let's just change everything to decimal places first. So sum of sales will be home and only two decimal places. Average discount, let's just convert this into percentage. Clicking here, I will like two decimal places. Now it's very comparable. I can say that Texas is the region where I'm giving 37% as an average discount, which is a lot to get hit. And I think that's like the highest part, right? And now you can see I have country, and then under country I have central, under central I have a lot of states. What I would like to do now is collapse everything all together, right? So that can be done using collapse field. And then if I'm going to click on collapse field again, it will just give me United States. So this is how dynamic you can be while you're working with your pivot tables. So if I'm going to, let's say, open it again, you can see if I'm going to row labels, then it won't happen, but I have to go to a particular selection and do it. Or you can click on a plus sign here and then do it. You can see singular items also by clicking here. So it's always good to actually add a lot of things. I will like to add city here as well, right? It will automatically identify where it should be. And although I can obviously just have it till here and minimize this, I can do directly using this. And now you can see all the states, right? Anytime if you're, let's say, submitting an Excel file or let's say a file which contains all the pivot tables to your boss or anyone in your let's say colleagues area, they can easily work around with this if they can look at this. So it's always advised to add a lot of things instead of just one, so that you can work around with it very easily. Now one more thing that you might want to notice is refresh. So if I'm actually updating something in this data set, now it has already taken let's say the data source, and if I want to see if it is being updated here or not, all I have to do is just click on refresh here, and it will automatically take all the information by itself, right? I can change the name of the table here so that I can easily identify what this table is all about. Let's say I want to write it as table 1. Now the name of this table is table 1, right? I can change the data source if I want, although I don't want to do it right now. But we really want to focus on this is known as calculated field option. And I don't want to work with calculated item, but calculated field. Okay. So if you will see what is calculated field, let's say you have the entire data set, but you wanted to create some calculation out of it, then you can do it here. So instead of taking sum of sales and sum of profits and then checking what's the difference, I can just say what is the profit percentage out of the entire sales, that is profit margins. So I can create a formula for the same, and then I can add it in a pivot table. It might sound a little confusing for you right now, but let's just think of how we can work around with that. So let's say I am writing profit margins, right? And in the formula, right, I'm saying give me sales, insert field, and then I'll write a divide sign. Sorry, it should be the other way around. It should be profits divided by sales, and then insert it. So I have a particular formula inserted now, and if I'm going to click on add, I can see I'm going to go close. There will be an option of profit margins, and you can see a profit margin window is here now. And now I can easily compare what is the exact number of profit margins. This is the way you actually add a calculated field. Now, just because I did that, I do not need sum of profit margin something, right? All I can say that, okay, I can identify what is the discount that I'm giving, what is the profit margin that I'm having at the particular moment, and how I can work around with both to know where my company stands at this particular moment. Another thing that you might want to know is recommended pivot tables, right? So instead of doing all the pivot tables by yourself, what you can do is just go to insert, then go to hello table, and then go from table or range, select it, get a new worksheet, go to recommended tables, and you can sometimes get what you want just by going through recommended tables. So it is giving me profit of sum of profit by states. It is giving me sum of profit by region, sum of sales, sum of discount, and some more things which I cannot see right now. And then you can see sum of quantity by region also. So this will tell me which particular state is having the highest volume, right? So if I'm going to click on OK here, you can see it's just there right in front of me. This is the way we are actually able to do a lot of things. Now, what is being shown to you is in the show tab. Now you can see, if I want to, let's say, not see buttons, you can see this region, the plus region will actually diminish. If I want to see the field list, I can see that. If I want the field headers, I can do that. It is always recommended to not, have this once you have done all the analysis. But for now, I will have all of this available. Last part is how you want your entire report to look like. Okay. So if I'm going to click on plus here, instead of that, let's just work on this because we have already done some part here. I will not take a city for this example. I will not take state for this example because I want this example to be very simple. Instead, let's just take state. Won't be very complex. I can change the way entire table will look like, just the way it was for tables in our last lectures. Let's say I like this one, although it is a little ugly for me. I will not go ahead with that. I'll choose a very simple one like this. Okay, or maybe this. I can work around with these. These are simplistic. Now, the other thing that you might want to see is these options. So if I'm going to click on banded rows, you can see the way it will look like will change a little. So this design option is nothing but how you want your entire report to look like. So by the end of these lectures that we will be having, you will have projects that you need to complete. And all of these projects will be based on whatever we have done till now. And sometimes in one of the projects, you might be asked to, let's say, add a lot of pivot tables and use slicers and timelines and pivot charts, which we'll be doing in our next 2 lectures, and create like a proper dashboard. We can create a dashboard in Excel as well, just our Excel environment. And we might want to beautify the entire thing. And that's why design tab is really necessary. We might want to have banded columns also, that we can do it here. You can see how we can add, blank rows after each thing. We can remove it from here. You can choose the way information is being shown to you, although I always prefer the first one, right? But you can use whatever is required to you, whatever is fine for yourself. You can actually on grand totals, but something that we do not want right now though. And you can always see subtotals. You can say that I want to see subtotals of each thing, right? So if I'm going to click on this, you can say that for central total, let's say on average, whatever discount I'm giving is this region, and then I have this, right? So you can work around with these also, but at the very beginning, all you need to know is how to create pivot tables. So this is an ending of the lecture, and this is an assignment that I'm going to give to you. You actually have to go home, take data set, maybe this one which I have worked on, or maybe something else that you really want to work on, and try to work with pivot tables by yourself. Create a pivot table, think of what all you can do. For me, if you ask me, I already took subcategory and category, right? So let's say I want to go to the pivot table option. Okay, I don't know if this is working or not now. Segment. It is working, right? So I created a new pivot table here. Try to create some pivot tables in the single sheet and see how this entire thing will look like for you. And try to work with those datasets also which you cannot think of right now. So ship mode is something that we can also think of, right? You can see ship mode is not being able to add at all now. I don't know what's the issue here. Yeah. Is it happening in sheet 3? It is definitely happening. I have no clue why I have issues in only one pivot table. Again, as I told you, my Excel will have some glitch sometimes. Other than that, all you have to do is work around with calculated fields. Try to do some calculation and try to actually insert a recommended pivot table from here. Now, in the next lectures, we'll be working with slicers and timelines. And after that, we'll learn how to create the dynamic charts, which I love at all times. So visualization will come later, but we'll first see how we can do a lot of things, right? So that's it for this lecture. I hope you really liked it. If you have any doubts, you can contact me, and I will see you in the next lecture soon.